Hey girlies, just a quick reminder before we dive into today's episode. The information shared on this podcast is intended to be general sports nutrition advice and education related to period recovery for female athletes. This is not specific to any one individual, and it may or may not apply to your situation. If you are looking for personalized guidance, be sure to apply to our RBSN Period Recovery Nutrition Coaching Program. Our 4-month period recovery program is designed to help you sustainably get your period back and keep it. You can apply now to get started in our program, and we'll leave the link for the program below. If you're not quite ready for that one-on-one approach, that's exactly why we created the Period Recovery Guide. It's designed to support the girlies working on period recovery, specifically if you've lost it due to hypothalamic amenorrhea. The full Period Recovery Guide is finally out now, and we will leave all of the information for it in the podcast show notes. This is the Eat More Carbs Podcast. Hello and welcome back. This is the Eat More Carbs Podcast. It's Jenna here with Reilly. We are both dietitians and we talk every Thursday about sports nutrition for the girlies. On today's episode, we're actually doing a race recap of Reilly's most recent half marathon. Before we get into some of that, we are going to do our high and low, so sharing just a little bit about our week, the good, and the parts we maybe wish had gone a little bit differently. So Reilly, as always, kick us off. What's your high and low?
Yeah, so I will kind of kick us off as always. I'm going to do it a little bit differently today though, because we are kind of talking about my most recent race. So I thought I would kind of give a high-low situation from my recent half marathon. Thank you to everybody that reached out and supported me. I know, Jenna, this is something that you and I have talked a lot about offline, but I'm just so thankful for the RBSN community. And there's so many people out there who are kind of like cheering us on, and it's really great. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody out there who reached out and who was following along. If you were following along on Instagram, you probably saw that I didn't necessarily get the time that I had expected and the time that I wanted. So that's definitely my low. I was pretty upset during my race. I found out about like mile 4 or 5 that like it wasn't going the way that I wanted it to go. And so then the next, like 8 miles were a little bit of a struggle, but I was able to finish. My high though is I feel like what happened was exactly what I needed to happen. And I'm excited to share a little bit about that on today's episode.
Oh, okay. Big cliffhanger there. Now I'm super excited to hear more about it. This is the first time I'm hearing Reilly's race recap as well. So we are all hearing this for the first time. So super excited, and thank you for being so open and sharing about it. I know that from my own experience, not meeting a race goal can be really disheartening, but sometimes it can also be like exactly what you need, the motivation.
Yes. And if you have not listened to Jenna's episode with her giving her recent marathon recap, I just want to give you a strong recommendation to check that out because it really helped me during my race. Jenna was actually the first person I texted when I was done with my race, just because I was so touched by her episode and her voice like kept coming up during my race. So if you have not listened to that episode, you definitely want to go and check that out.
Wow. Now I'm going to cry.
How about you, Jenna? Like, how's your week going?
My week is actually going really good. I'll share my low first. We have like a type of grass situation in our yard. It like has some thorns on it. Occasionally, if my dog George goes outside and gets too close to it, he'll pick them up in his fur and bring them inside. He's a fluffy golden retriever. Anyway, the other day I took him out and brought him back inside, and then I took off my shoes and I began to walk across like our entryway rug, and the immediate moment I put like my right foot down on the ground, I knew I had stepped on one of those thorns, and it went like directly into like the bottom of my heel, and my foot hurt so bad. I felt like such a baby because I was like, this is a thorn that went into my foot. It didn't look traumatic on the bottom of my foot. It just hurt kind of like a paper cut does, where you're like, how does something so small hurt so bad? So I'm fine now, but my gosh, it hurt so bad.
That stuff hurts so bad. Like, you're like, why does this hurt and affect me so much? It is this tiny little like prick or things like that. And it just, I've been there. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's the worst. My high, on the other hand, I'm sharing with permission. We have a client at RBSN. She's someone that I work with, and she's a very dedicated athlete and someone that I just feel so grateful to get to work with. But she is also the kindest, most compassionate person I think I've ever met. Every single time that I'm on a call with her, she asks me about how my hamstring is. She asks me about like how I'm doing. Like, she always wants to make sure she's asking about me and also like how RBSN is doing. She reached out to Reilly before Reilly's half marathon and asked if she could help her like with race shoes and all sorts of things that like maybe could help Reilly in her race. And she's so supportive of RBSN, and we are so thankful that we get to work with like the best people. Like, I have said that before, like we truly work with the best athletes, but I just want to give a special shout out to her because she's so kind that like every single time that we're talking about like her nutrition and her journey, that she also wants to include questions about like Reilly and I and make sure that she's she's checking in on us. So thank you so much. We absolutely adore you.
Yes. And we know that you listen to the podcast and we have to have you on.
Today, we're talking about Reilly's recent half marathon, how it all went. Can you kind of give like a overview of like the race that you picked, why you picked it?
So I picked a race end of June. My goal for this race was to kind of get a good baseline going into training for the New York Marathon. My training for the New York Marathon officially starts like middle of July. And I really was focused on getting a good base mileage per week and making sure that I was having enough strength training with that paired mileage to make sure that I don't get hurt and to just perform the way that I want to perform for the marathon. My goal was to try a lot of things out. I started using Runna to train for this half marathon, which I have not used as much of a structured plan before. I've used like some free plans online and then I've adjusted based off of like my knowledge and background and different things like that. And this time it was the first time I'd really used like a structured plan. So trying that out. I also have really bad pre-performance anxiety or pre-race anxiety, kind of trying to stimulate more race environments. Because of my schedule, because of my location, I do a lot of my training alone. And so being put with other runners can sometimes be really anxious for me. That is actually something that I really experienced at my last race, which I can talk more about. But really just kind of as a practice run to get ready for like my official training block for the New York Marathon.
What was your approach to fueling for this race?
Okay, so I almost like feel bad admitting this because I am a dietitian, but I do think I actually underfueled. And I definitely think I did. I had a really stressful day on Friday before my race, and I had to travel for my race. So I worked a full day, had a lot of stressful meetings that day, and then I had to drive to the race. I had to pick up my packet the morning of, which I thought was actually going to be something that was beneficial, but I think it added an additional layer of stress. So when I woke up Saturday morning, I was really, really stressed. So it was really hard for me to eat Saturday. And because I was so stressed on Friday because of some big meetings that I had, it was really hard for me to eat lunch on Friday. I wasn't really able to eat a snack. I ended up having like half of my lunch, like Rob's, my husband, bought a sandwich for me on Friday for lunch. I was only able to eat like half of it. I tried to eat carbohydrates like the night before. I had kind of my carb loading plan, but I wasn't able to hit a lot of that because of the heat and because of a lot of the stress.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that sometimes people assume that just because we're dietitians that we don't experience the same type of struggle sometimes. But then when you add the component of like you have some stressful meetings or you have to travel or you have race day pickup or things like that, that adds additional stress that we didn't even like think about or maybe even anticipate happening because we can't prepare or we can't predict the future with what the days leading up to the race is going to look like when we have other components that are external that are going to impact things. That sounds like you were starting off in like maybe even a stressful, maybe even slightly under fueled, definitely not maybe as fueled as you would have liked to be. But tell us about like the actual race itself. Did the nerves calm down? How do you feel things went like after that?
When I woke up, I was already stressed out. I also track my heart rate, like my resting heart rate, and I kind of use that as like a way to help with my training. So if I know that if I'm waking up at like 41 like beats per minute, like that's my resting. And again, everybody's different. I'm not saying that that's what your heart rate should be. Everybody's different. I know that I can feel super refreshed and I can push for a training day. If I know that like I'm at 42, like depending on where I am in the month, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm pushing today, especially if I'm in my luteal phase, like my heart rate usually goes a little bit higher. I'm like, okay, I can still push. 43, I'm like, I'm not training today because my body needs recovery. So for example, like on Sunday and Monday after my half, I was super sore. I was lethargic. My resting heart rate was 43. I woke up Saturday morning and my heart rate was 44, even though I hadn't trained in 3 days because of that stress piece. And I know this is not necessarily what you asked, but I think it's so interesting because when we look at athletes with period recovery, there is a stress component to preventing you from getting your period back, I feel like once you've kind of gotten into a positive energy balance.
I'm really glad you brought this up because I've had several conversations this week about stress and how that impacts period recovery. And I think that a lot of the athletes that I have talked to, the biggest source of stress that they have expressed is the stress that they are putting on themselves to get their period back. Was there anything that like you found helpful in those moments that helped you like reduce stress leading into the race? We had Emily on previous episode talking through like pre-game or pre-competition anxiety and some techniques and things like that. Did you practice anything or your morning routine differently because of that?
I honestly tried, but something that we always talk about is like you have to practice these things before race day, before the stakes are high. And again, like that's why I did this race, right? To kind of practice some of these things. And I think that I obviously didn't practice them enough. Kind of moving forward, right? Obviously, I'm going to be practicing my training, but I'm also going to be practicing some of these mindset things. I'm very confident that my stress level affected how I fueled in the morning, because I remember I set out like 2 pieces of peanut butter and jelly toast, and I was going to have that with a banana and a Gatorade. And I felt really good about that. I took 1 bite of my peanut butter and jelly toast and I was like, I'm going to throw up right now. And I had practiced that. I actually threw out that toast and I went for like cinnamon sugar toast. I don't know if you ever made that as a kid, but I did that. But unfortunately, like that's not a ton of fuel, but that's the only thing I could get down in that moment. I found that I really need to replicate a lot more of these stressful situations so like I can manage them appropriately, because I can't run a marathon off of 2 pieces of toast. I couldn't even run a half marathon off of 2 pieces of toast, like as well as I could. So you just really have to like practice a lot of this stuff before the stakes are as high.
Practicing fueling for competition, for race day is something that we talk so much or so often about. The other thing that we talk quite frequently about though is always having a plan B, always having a backup option, always having something for the just in case, for the moments that you try your peanut butter toast and for some reason that morning your body's like, this ain't it. So you had that cinnamon sugar toast, and like even though it maybe wasn't perfect, it was still something, and it was still like that plan B, that backup. Can you talk a little bit about like once the race actually started and like how the fueling went, like intra run, and how the race actually went for you?
I don't know if I should laugh about this or not. I started my period in the middle of the race.
Oh my gosh. Well, congrats. We love a period.
I started cramping so bad. Like I started having menstrual cramps so bad at mile 2. And I was like, this is so ironic right now. I literally do period recovery for a job. And like now I'm having my period and I had really bad cramps. It was making it really hard for me to fuel. And I'm so happy in the past that I practiced with gels, because like you just said, Jenna, you always have to have a plan B. And I could not even fathom chewing my gummy bears. Like I love gummy bears. I use them all the time. I use them so many times for inter-run fuel, but because I was just cramping so hard, the idea of chewing something was no. And I had packed 3 gels. I was so happy that I had that backup plan, because I was like, I cannot believe what's happening right now.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea. I know that you track your cycle. We both track our cycle to like see where things are at. And did you know that it was coming? Was it something that you were anticipating, or was this like...
I knew it was coming. Like, I don't know. Like, I usually have like a little bit of a range. Like, I'm pretty short. Like, it's like 22 to 24 days. And I didn't know what day it was going to come. I wasn't expecting the cramps. Like, if it was just like, not to get TMI everybody, but if it was just the bleeding, like, okay, like that's fine. But like the cramps came at me and I just was not ready for them.
So many people have been in a situation where they know that those like PMS symptoms, like cramping or just like bloating or just general discomfort, and how that can impact fueling. What gels did you end up taking? I know that that was been a big thing for you, is like testing out ones, finding ones that you can tolerate, because so many of them don't sit well with you. So what did you end up doing?
I really like the SIS. Like I think the SIS, the Science and Sport gel, is like, that's my gel. I also have been experimenting with the UCAN, just because it is another isotonic gel and it's something that you don't have to take with water, but I'm not sure if I love that one. And I think right now, because I am at like a shorter air quote distance, it's really hard to tell right now. I'm so glad that I had that backup, and I'm actually really glad that like that happened to me, because now I also know like in the future, like maybe I'm not going to want to choose something, like I have a gel. And I know everybody who's listening to this, you're probably like, okay, well now I don't want to get my period, because what happens if it's during competition? And like, it's amazing that I got my period. Like it's just something that's going to happen, right? That shows it's a sign that I'm healthy. In the future, I want to make sure that I'm prepared for every situation.
Having that backup plan, knowing that there are so many things that can impact what happens to us on race day, like starting your period in the middle of the race. Is that something that you felt impacted like your pace? Because I know we had like a big pace goal for this race.
I'm really glad that you asked that, because I think there's so many parallels with like training for a marathon and getting your period back. To be completely honest with you, I think I just like lost sight of the plot. I forgot why I was doing this race. I wasn't doing this race race to get a sub 1:30. I wasn't doing this race to win the half marathon. I was doing this to prepare myself for the New York Marathon. New York City is in November. The goal of this is to prepare for that. And I think it can be so easy, especially when we like see things online, to kind of get sidetracked from our main goal. And it's not even something that we're doing consciously. It's something that we can do subconsciously, where like I've been using Runna and it told me that I could like hit a certain pace. But like getting faster at my half marathon like wasn't necessarily my goal. My goal was to prepare for my marathon. And I think what happened was I got caught up in like what everybody was doing around me, trying to keep up with certain people, and I got sidetracked from what the actual like goal of me running this race was.
Okay. Do you feel like the mental component of that like impacted how you did that day?
Yes, because I was putting so much stress on myself, and I think that caused me to underfuel, that caused me not to get good sleep. That paired with my stressful day on Friday, again, resulted in just me having a really strong stress response. Something else I've been dying to tell you, I'm sure it's user error, but I've been using Runna. And one of my goals for this race was to try out Runna on race day. I don't know how you feel about this as a fellow runner, but with Runna, it counts down for me from my long runs. And I think it might just be like a setting I have set up. And it's never really mattered because I'll do a long run. So if I'm running like 10 miles, it will count down from 10 miles. And it will only tell you your pace once you've hit a mile, right? So it'll be like mile 1, you ran, whatever. I didn't know what it would do on race day. It counted down from 13.1 miles and it didn't tell me my pace. And there was no clock on the course because it was a smaller race and it was a greenway. So I didn't know my pace until I hit my first mile.
Okay.
Which was really stressful, to be completely honest.
I can imagine that would add to the stress of things, especially because when you do have a pace goal, like staying informed or staying connected to that the whole time, I feel like is something that helps keep me grounded. Oh man, I just think that that would be so hard in my mind. You know, we all have different approaches to how we view races or how we break it down, or if you count up, count down. Different things are going to work for different people about how you break it up or count things, but like knowing your pace, I think is so important when you have a pace goal, especially when you're stressed and you have an increase in that heart rate, like you were talking about before. Your effort can seem maxed out at an earlier time. And if you don't know your pace, but you feel like you're running at such a high output because your heart rate is already higher, then when you get that notification and you see a pace that's not on pace for that goal time, that can add even more stress. Or at least in my mind, I feel like that would add more stress. I think this all kind of ties back to period recovery and so many athletes saying that like they put so much stress on themselves to start their period again, and that's the source of their stress. But as dietitians, and I have felt this way before, so I don't know if this is something that you feel similarly to, but I know when I'm underfueling, especially on race day, like because of those nerves, if I'm like, I know I haven't maximized my carbohydrate intake, I know that I should be fueling more often during the race. And that makes me stressed out because I have seen over and over and over again, and knowing what happens when you don't fuel appropriately. And then I stress myself out because I'm worried about underfueling in those moments. So like there sounds like there was a lot of components to stress on this day for you, but you still finished. How did you handle that? In a great time too, no less. Like you still had a great race. Was it the race we were looking for? No. Was it a PR? Perhaps not, but you still finished. How did you get through that? Because I can imagine that was really hard.
It honestly was very mentally challenging because something that's happened in my last 2 races, like my half and then also my 5K, is I'm in this weird position right now with the races that I've been running because they've been smaller. What's happened the last 2 races is the pace that I've been running at usually puts me alone because I'm not really as fast as that like top group. So I'm often running by myself. This was kind of challenging because like I was on a greenway and I was running by myself for a good amount of time. That was kind of like really mentally challenging because again, I'm running by myself. It's kind of like an out and back. So like I'll eventually see people, but you don't really get that like energy that you usually get from a race. So I think that was really, really challenging. Mentally also challenging because I also realized at like mile 5 or 6 that like I wasn't going to hit my goal. And I honestly, if I had not been in such like a mental stressful place, I honestly would have PR'd. Like I feel really confident that I could have like at least PR'd, but because I was so mentally in my head, I guess we could say, it really held me back. Additionally, too, something that was kind of interesting was that the marathon, 10K and the 5K were all on the same course, but they let the half go first. So what ended up happening is we looped back. It was challenging for everybody because the half eventually caught up with the 10K and the 5K. So then everybody was like almost weaving around each other because the paces were so different.
Races like that are hard. That's challenging because you have so many different paces, so many different goals, and then you have an increase in runners, it almost sounds like, towards the end of the race. Navigating that, I'm sure, was challenging too. Man, Reilly, it sounds like there were so many things that were just kind of great learning experiences, because we never say that we failed at RBSN. We always say that we had a learning experience, because there's always something that we can take away from something that we've gone through. Is there anything that like you came back to that helped you carry on after you realized you weren't going to meet your goal?
I honestly just like kept pushing myself. I really think that like you sharing your story on this, like that really helped me. It's easy to think like if we haven't met our goal for something that it was a waste of an experience, right? And I think again, like we talk about this all the time with period recovery, but like just because like you didn't accomplish the goal that you thought, it doesn't mean that it was a waste. And I think it's so easy again, right? When you're in period recovery to see something online, or you see somebody with abs, or you see somebody hitting this physical goal, you kind of get sidetracked, I think. But then you have to kind of come back always to that like original goal. And the original goal for this half was to get ready for New York. And I honestly think if I had probably like pushed myself to my capability and if everything had gone right, I might have been super cocky going into New York City. This might have happened in New York because I would have started too fast, or I would have set too much of an unrealistic goal, which we know sometimes that Reilly likes to do. So I think this was almost like a really good like learning experience for me. I have one other thing that I want to say, because at mile 11 I stopped. Like I stopped and I took probably like a minute like reset, because I was like in my head. It was really hot and the sun was like pounding. We were running into the sun. I was like, I have 2.1 miles left. Like I'm just gonna take a reset, because again, this doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter, right? Like this is a training exercise. Like you just need to finish the half. One of the pacers actually for the 145 group, he came over to me and was like, in a very cool way, he was like, why don't you run with us? Like, run with us. Like you look like you're struggling a little bit. Like let's at least get 145. And I was like, okay, thank you. Thank you. So I ran with the 145 pace group, which I've never run with a pacer before. I ran with that group for the next like mile. And then the guy who came over and got me, like looked at me and was like, I know you're faster than this. Like, let's push for the last mile. And this man ran with me to the end and like didn't let me stop. And we went like pretty fast. And he was like, I know it's not your day today, but like, let's go. We talked about this before, but it like people on race day just like really show up for you.
Shoot, I'm going to cry. That is why I love the running community, because there are people that are going to encourage you and lift you up. And we've all been there, and we know what someone else needs to hear, because it was the words that maybe we needed to hear when we were struggling. So having people around you to be like, run with me, you've got this, like we can push this last mile, things like that. Oh, I freaking love that. Oh my gosh, what a way to wrap that up, Reilly. Like what a great ending to a race that didn't go the way that you wanted it.
I know, this random man, I
don't even know what to say.
I know. I'm like, I'm never going to see you again. Like I didn't get your name. And I was like, you just like changed my life and you didn't even know it.
I love that. I've been thinking about this for a little while now, but I really want to like give back to the running community, whether that be like volunteer at a race or something like that. But like, I have so much gratitude for pacers and for anyone at a race who's ever uplifted another runner.
So shout out to that guy. I should have gotten your name, but it was too chaotic at the end. But it warmed my heart like so much.
I'm so glad that that's how that race finished for you, because I know that it was hard, and to have something like positive to take away from it is sometimes hard to do, but that's one of the like best takeaways that I've ever heard from a race.
And I honestly might even think about running with a pacer, at least for the first half in New York City, because I had a really good experience with it.
Pacers are incredible. Do you think that you'll run another race before New York?
I already have one planned for the end of August.
Oh, perfect. What race are we running?
I'm running the Asheville Half Marathon. I'm going to go and just run it the pace that I think I'm going to run the New York Marathon. I keep calling it New York Marathon, the New York City Marathon. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and I'm just going to try my pace. It's in place of a training run. So I'm excited for that. And I'm really pumped with how everything ended, even though it wasn't the result I wanted. I feel really good and like at least in a really good headspace about it now.
I can't wait. Also, that's like a place in the country I've always wanted to visit. So please enjoy.
Okay, we'll come run it with me.
Say less, I'm there. Vote for what race Reilly and I should do next together in the comments. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Eat More Carbs podcast, Reilly. Thank you so much for sharing about your race day experience and everything that kind of went on. If you do have questions for Reilly and I, additional questions for Reilly about her race, or maybe even adjustments that she plans to make for her upcoming half now in August, please reach out to us or leave them in the comments of this podcast. You can find Reilly online at easy.sports.nutrition, and you can find me at jenna.fisher.nutrition. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please make sure you rate, subscribe, and review. And as always, remember to eat more carbs.